corset, and we expose what the Queen spent her entire life suppressing. Elizabeth Tudor was not born into power. She was born into terror. She was 2.5 years old when her mother, Anne Boleyn, was dragged to the scaffold. The child was too young to understand the politics, but not too young to absorb the consequences. One day, she was Princess Elizabeth. The next, she was a bastard, her mother, dead, her father, the man who killed her. And although the court whispered the official line, treason, adultery, witchcraft, Elizabeth grew up with the unspoken truth lodged deep in her mind. If a king could destroy the woman he once adored, what hope did a daughter have? It is said that trauma forms armor, or a cage. For Elizabeth, it became both. The corset, rigid, constricting, flawless, became the perfect metaphor for the life Elizabeth was forced to build. Pulled tight across the ribs, restricting breath, forcing the torso into an impossible shape. Exactly how she forced her soul into an impossible ideal. A queen who needed nothing, a woman untouched, a ruler without weakness. She learned early that vulnerability was fatal. Her childhood homes, Hatfield, Ashridge, were cold not because of stone walls, but because affection meant danger, trust meant exposure, and love meant the block. So she tightened herself, emotionally, politically, physically. Every morning, her ladies-in-waiting laced her corset until she could barely inhale. But it wasn't vanity. It was ritual. It reminded her, control is survival. Softness is death. Elizabeth had suitors, a legion of them, princes, dukes, kings, men who smelled power, men who wanted to possess it. But for Elizabeth, marriage was more than political convenience. It was a threat she had watched her father's wives disappear, cast aside, exiled, executed, beheaded. Marriage in her world was a cage with a key she did not hold, and the one thing she feared more than death was surrender. To wed meant to submit. To bear children meant to risk her life. To share the throne meant to give up control. And after a lifetime of tightening the metaphorical corset, the idea of loosening it, even for love, was intolerable. Thus, the Virgin Queen was not born of purity, but of dread. She chose autonomy over affection, power over partnership, loneliness over vulnerability, because intimacy requires unveiling, and she would rather die than be truly seen. But control, when held too tightly, becomes its own punishment. Behind the portraits, the powdered face, the crimson gowns, the jeweled armor, Elizabeth was deteriorating. By her 40s, she slept little. By her 50s, she trusted no one. By her 60s, she refused even to sit, fearing the court would see her frailty. She did not simply rule England. She ruled herself with brutality. Every insecurity was bound down. Every fear was stitched shut. Every human longing was pushed deeper, deeper, deeper. Under the corset, it is said that when she finally died, her ladies found that she had taken to wearing thicker padding beneath her gowns, not out of vanity, but to conceal the wasting of her body. Even in death, she wanted control. Even in death, she hid the truth. So what was the Virgin Queen's darkest secret? It was not a lover, nor a scandal, nor a hidden child. It was the thing she spent her entire life suffocating, her humanity. Her corset was not an ornament. It was a fortress, a prison, a reminder of the trauma she never escaped. Beneath it lay the frightened child who watched her mother vanish from history, the young woman who learned that affection was a liability, the queen who sacrificed her own heart to protect her crown. And so, Elizabeth I lived and died as a masterpiece of self-discipline, a woman who conquered an empire, but lost herself because the greatest power she held was not over England, but over her own emotions. And the price of that power was isolation, emptiness. A lifetime spent wearing a corset no one could remove. This has been the shadow past, where history is not just learned, it is unmasked. Like, subscribe, and step with us into